Hello students, welcome to BYJU'S classes. In this particular video, we will have a discussion regarding the questions that have appeared from the economics subject in the UPSC Prelims 2018. Apart from the questions from economics PA, I will also be taking up and discussing some of the questions that have appeared regarding various schemes in the paper. And the test booklet series that I will be using in this particular discussion will be of series C. And wherever necessary, I will be giving you certain discussion and explanation, and in case of direct questions, we will just go through the answers. So let's start. First is the question number 3. This particular question is on Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, that is PMKVY. This particular scheme has been launched by the central government and various statements have been given on this particular scheme. You will have to identify which of these statements are true. So some of the important points related to this scheme are, this scheme has been launched by Government of India under an umbrella scheme called as a Skill India. Under this particular concept of Kaushal Vikas Yojana, the objective is to train 24 lakh youth, of which 14 lakh will be provided with training and 10 lakh will be provided with recognition of prior learning certification. And to implement these skilling programs, the central government has set up a new ministry in the year 2014, that is Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. So based on this particular information, let's try and find out which of these particular statements are true. First one, it is a flagship scheme of Ministry of Labour and Employment. It is wrong. Second one, among other things, it will impart training, soft skills and entrepreneurship and financial digital literacy. Correct. It aims to align the competencies of the unregulated workforce of the country with the National Skill Qualification Framework. What is this NSQF? NSQF is basically a standardization, or certain standards have been devised, and these particular standards have to be met in terms of training parameters or quality of the training which will be provided. So based on this particular information, we can find that statement 2 and statement 3, both of them are correct. So the right option will be option C. Next is question number 17, that is, if a commodity is provided free to the public by the government, then 4 options have been given. You will have to find out which is the right option. Before understanding the question, let's try and understand the concept of opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? Let's assume I've got 10 rupees. This 10 rupees I can consume right, a product A, or I can consume a product B. How much utility I derive by consuming product A, foregoing the consumption of product B, is a concept of an opportunity cost. That is the opportunity of the option that is foregone is a concept of an opportunity cost. So basically, right, if a commodity is provided free to the public by the government, right, for example, direct benefit transfer LPG. Let's assume the government of India has spent 100 crore rupees under this particular concept, and the LPG has been provided to you free of a cost. So basically, the right option or the more appropriate option for this particular question will be option C. That is, opportunity cost is transferred from the consumers of the product to the tax paying public. So basically, what has the government of India done? Transfer this 100 crores from its kitty to into your hands, and now you can use these 100 crores in the form of a savings that you have done by not paying for this particular LPG subsidy. So basically, the option C is the right option. Next, question number 18. The question reads, increase in absolute and per capita real GNP do not connote a higher level of economic development. If 4 options are given, you are supposed to find out the right option. Before looking at the options, you should know 2 concepts. One is GNP and the other one is economic development. Let me start with GNP. GNP stands for Gross National Product. Basic concept of a gross national product is what? The total value of the goods and services, or the monetary value of goods and services which have been produced by Indian nationals. That is the concept of a GNP. And on the other side, he uses the term development. Development, please understand, is a qualitative term, because growth is always a quantitative, it is always a numerical, whereas a development is a qualitative, that is in form of let's say sanitation level, poverty numbers, increase in literacy levels, so on and so forth. So basically the question is this, if GNP has increased, it necessarily doesn't mean economic development. In case of, you will have to find out which is the right option. Now, is it okay if I simply say that the total production is increasing? Let's assume 3 Indians are there, just for sake of understanding. 3 Indians are there, A, B, C, and in 1 year they produced a total value of goods and services worth 100 rupees. let's say he has produced 40 rupees worth of goods, he has produced worth 30, and he has produced worth 30 rupees. And I'm pretty sure you also know the concept of the production means also the income generation. That is, the total value of production will also be the total value of income that is generated. So essentially all the three have generated certain incomes. But in next year, let's say hypothetically, this has increased to 150, but A has produced worth 100, B has produced worth 40, and C has produced only worth 10 rupees. So don't you think in this particular second scenario, A and B have produced more and C has produced very less, but essentially the total production, that is GNP, has increased, but it doesn't mean the poverty has come down, nor does it mean unemployment has come down. So the right option will be option C. That is, production has increased, the income which has been generated has also increased, but this increased income has been concentrated or has been taken up by very small amount of population, which basically means what? The growth has been exclusive, not inclusive. So the poverty as well as unemployment numbers actually increase during this particular period. So the right option will be option C. Question number 19, consider the following statement. Human capital formation as a concept is better explained in terms of process which enables. 4 points have been given, you will have to choose which is the appropriate option. So human capital formation, right? Many of the times you will come across this particular concept of a demographic dividend in the newspapers. And in case of India, by virtue of having more than 760 million population, in the working age population or working age group, India enjoys a huge demographic dividend. But essentially, what is this concept of a demographic dividend? It is nothing but the formation of a human capital. Now, human capital formation means what? Right? The question is the essence of the concept of a human capital formation. Now, let's look at all the 4 points here. One is individuals of a country to accumulate more capital, increasing the knowledge, skill levels and capacities of the people of the country, accumulation of a tangible wealth, accumulation of intangible wealth. In this particular question, I am pretty sure there will be a huge discussion for a simple reason. Some of the experts agree that human capital formation will lead to, one, increase the knowledge, skill levels and capacities of the people of the country. That is the plain meaning of the concept of a human capital formation. But apart from this, some of the experts also will tell you that concept of a human capital formation will also lead to formation of or let's say filing of more patents, copyrights, or intellectual property rights, so on and so forth. That will be what? Intangible wealth. But let's go with the basic concept. Human capital formation will be point 2. So the right option or more appropriate option in this particular scenario will be option B. Question number 20, despite being a high saving economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in output due to. Basically understand this. This has been raised from a static concept. In this year, you will see many of the questions from the static part of economics or economy to be more precise. But essentially, let's try and analyze this particular question. Basically, he says that savings are very high in the economy, but this increased savings or high savings in the economy is essentially not leading to higher output. And this is because 4 options have been given. Now, understand this, there is a model called as a HD model, that is Harrod-Domer model, which basically is written in the form of G is equal to S upon R, wherein G is basically growth, S is nothing but a savings, and R is called as a capital output ratio. And what is the meaning of a capital output ratio? Just go with the literal meaning of this particular term, capital output ratio. In simple terms, how many units of a capital must be spent to get 1 unit of output? I'll repeat the statement here. How many unit of a capital must be spent to get 1 unit of output? And by logic, lower the capital output ratio, better it is for the economy. That is, to produce 1 unit of a good, it is better if I spend 2 rupees rather than spending, let's say, 5 rupees. So in essence, lower the capital output ratio, higher will be growth, and higher the growth, higher will be the output. Are you going to understand this particular analysis? One of the other parameter is also what? Savings. Now basically look at this. What the question says is there is very high savings in the economy, but output is not increasing very significantly. So this has increased, but this is not increasing significantly. What is the meaning of it? simple meaning is R, that is a capital output ratio, is right, very high. I can understand this. I'll repeat the statement again. G is not increasing significantly, although S has increased. In this particular scenario, simple concept of a CSAT, you can simply say numerator has increased, the output or the G is not increasing because denominator is higher. So, higher capital output ratio is the right answer for the question number 20. Question number 26, consider the following statements. RBI manages and services Government of India securities but not any state government securities. Now, please understand, basically these securities which are issued by the central government are called as government securities or G securities, which are also referred as gilt-edged securities. These are two types, that is treasury bills as well as dated securities. I'm telling you this because next 2 points are related to treasury bills. Treasury bills are those securities, are the bonds which are issued by the Government of India, which will have the maturity period lesser than 1 year. Okay, for example, 91 days, 182 days, etc. Essentially, understand this, these G securities are issued at a discount and are realized at par. What is the meaning of this? Let's say, for example, bond value is 100, coupon rate or rate of interest is 2.36%. After 1 year, it is very difficult for me to pay 102 rupees 36 paisa. Rather than this, I will issue the bond at 98 rupees, give you a value of 100 rupees. That is issued at a discounted value, realized at par. Right? Usually, in case of G securities, this particular concept is followed, and these are called as a zero coupon bonds. So, first statement, Reserve Bank of India manages and services. This is wrong for a simple reason, the servicing of the debt is done by Government of India. So, option or statement 1 is wrong. Second statement, treasury bills are issued by the Government of India and there are no treasury bills issued by the state government. Correct, because treasury bills are not issued by the state government, rather the state government issues a concept of a state development loan. And third, treasury bills offer are issued at discount from the par value. So, basically I have discussed the concept of a zero coupon bonds. These are the bonds which are issued at a discount and realized at par. So, option or statement 3 is also correct. So, the right option will be option C. Consider the following. Basically, it is a question on MSP, that is a minimum support price. Usually, in last couple of years, the questions on MSP have been straightforward, if at all they have been asked in the prelims or mains. But this year, rather than asking various types of questions which could have been asked on MSP, because it was there in the newspapers very regularly, UPSC has given right a question which is a kind of a very tricky, for a simple reason, more than 20 crops have been provided with MSP by the central government. It is impossible for us, or it is very difficult for us to remember all the 20 crops. So, what UPSC has done is picked up the crops from this particular list of 20 plus crops which are provided with the support prices. But essentially the trick should have been coffee, right? Coffee is a commercial crop, right? So, wherever coffee is there, right, or simple reason, coffee, since is a commercial crop, is not provided with the support prices by the Government of India. So, coffee, that is one point that you should have observed, and the second one is barley and groundnut. Barley and groundnut, right, are basically one of the very important crops which are grown in India and need the support of Government of India in the form of a MSP. So, basically the right option will be wherever 2 and 5 are present and wherever 3 is not present. So, 2 and 5 are present here, 2 and 5 are present here, but 3 is present. So, this option is not correct. 2 is there, 5 is not there. So, this option is not correct. 2 and 5 are present here. So, option B will be correct. That is 2, 4, 5 and 6 only. Barley, finger millet, groundnut and sesame, right. So, these are the crops which are provided with the support prices by Government of India. Question number 36, with reference to the governance of public sector banks, consider the following statements. Two statements have been given. On these particular statements, right, you will have to find out which one is or which of the two or both of them whether they are correct or wrong. First statement is capital infusion into public sector banks by Government of India has steadily increased in the last decade. Usually this kind of a question is asked, that is again not specifically on banks, but steadily increase in the last decade. Usually this kind of a question is asked in terms of a taxation or in terms of this kind of a recapitalization package which was announced by Government of India. To solve this particular or to find out this particular statement, I've used a representation here. What you see is post to 2000, right, for many of the years in the decade, there was no concept of a capitalization by Government of India, and during 90s there was a widespread capitalization in the banking sector by Government of India. But essentially the question is in the last decade, and this particular capitalization many of the years is absent for a simple reason: the reforms which are introduced by Government of India in the form of, let's say, SARFAESI Act have worked to a certain extent in favor of the banking sector. That is the precise reason you do not find a huge amount of a capitalization packages in the last decade. So point 1 is wrong. Second one, to put the public sector banks in order, the merger of associate banks with the parent bank of SBI has been affected. This particular statement is true, right? So question number 36, only statement 2 is correct, right? So the right option will be what? Option B. Next is question number 37. Consider the following items. 4 items have been listed out and you need to find out which of them are exempted under GST. This question is tricky for a simple reason: there are more than 1000 commodities which are listed under GST. Can I remember all the 1000 commodities as to under which slab are they going to come? It is humanly impossible. But nevertheless, the concept of unpredictability is very much prevalent in UPSC, and you will find that particular idea in this particular question. So basically idea is what? The trick is fish processed and canned. Basically idea is this particular concept of canning, processing and canning of fish will be under the food processing industries, and food processing industry obviously will come under the ambit of GST. So obviously we will have to rule out any option that is right containing point 3. So option B is out, option D is out. So left out are A as well as C. And if you have read the newspapers, this was there in the newspapers, that is the newspapers containing advertising material. Please understand, last year the Government of India imposed a GST on agencies, I'll repeat it, GST on agencies which sell the ad spaces in the newspapers. That's a different concept altogether, but nevertheless during that discussion itself this was also mentioned, that is newspapers which are containing advertising material, will they be imposed with GST? No, they are not imposed with GST. But if an agency is selling the space to somebody else in the market, they will attract GST. So basically we know that 3 cannot be there in your option and 4 was there in the newspapers. So the right option will be what? Option C. Next is question number 43. It's a straightforward question on 70th round of NSSO. Again, this particular question is very much unexpected question, but nevertheless if you have read the report, statement 1, that is Rajasthan has the highest percentage share of agriculture households amongst its rural households, is correct. And second statement, out of the total agriculture households in the country, a little over 60% belong to OBCs, this is wrong. And the third one, in Kerala, a little over 60% of agriculture households reported to have received maximum income from the sources other than agriculture activities, it is correct. So basically it's a straightforward question from 70th round analysis of NSSO, no requirement of analysis. If you have read the report, directly you could have answered this particular question. So statement 1, statement 3 are true, option C is the correct option. 46, which one of the following best describes the term merchant discount rate? In the last 1 year, this particular term MDR has been there in the newspapers, and at the end of this particular discussion, that is the debate about MDR, the Government of India, to promote the concept of digital payments, basically said that any MDR of amount of a transaction or value of a transaction up to 2000 rupees, any MDR that is related to this kind of a transaction will be paid by Government of India's kitty itself. That is, Government of India is promoting the idea of a digital payments. But essentially what is the concept of a merchant discount rate? Merchant discount rate is basically nothing but, understand this concept, let's assume I go to a petrol bunk, right? Here I am standing, I am going to a petrol bunk and I will get a refilling of a petrol worth 500 rupees and I will not pay in cash, I will use a debit card. And this particular person in the petrol bunk will take this particular debit card and will swipe it at POS. What is POS? Point of sales machine. That is a handheld machine which is present in various shops around you people. It is called as a point of sales machine. So either he will swipe it or dip it and conduct the transaction, and the bank will collect a certain money from this particular petrol dealer for having provided the services of a POS machine. this particular charge that is imposed by a bank on these dealers for providing these particular services is called as a merchant discount rate. I'll repeat it. The charge that is imposed by a bank for providing the POS services, point of sales infrastructure to the dealers is called as a merchant discount rate. It was there in the newspapers because of post demonetization. On one side, government of India was trying to promote idea for digital payments, and on the other side, ICICI said that they will be reimposing the idea of a merchant discount rate, which was opposed by various petroleum distributors. So essentially, it was there in the newspapers, and this is the update. So based on this information, the right option of the four will be the charge to a merchant by a bank for accepting payments from his customers through the bank debit cards. So this is the right option, option C. Next is question number 48. With reference to India's decision to levy equalization tax of 6% on online advertisement services offered by non-resident entities, which of the following statements are correct? Before looking at the statements, what is an equalization tax? Basically, there is a concept of a BEPS, that is base erosion and profit shifting. And the concept of BEPS has been implemented or proposed by OECD and is being implemented across various countries. One of the points under BEPS is the concept of a equalization tax. But essentially, what is the idea of an equalization tax? In the newspapers, it was reported as a Google tax, especially in case of India. When this idea of taxing the non-resident entities which provide the services in India make huge amount of a profit, but because of various exemptions which are given under the direct tax avoidance agreement, they neither pay taxes in India nor in a country where they are registered. So essentially, they are avoiding taxes here as well as here. This concept falls under the concept of a base erosion and profit shifting, and to provide a certain cushion to domestic service providers. Again, I am using the term service providers because equalization tax is applicable only to the service providers. To provide certain cushion or protection to the domestic service providers and to collect the taxes or revenues from these non-resident entities, Government of India has imposed equalization tax on Google. And any tax that is paid by this particular company in India will not be given back or will not be given in the form of a credit in a country where they are registered. So basically, based on this information, right, let's look at the 2 points here. One, it is introduced as a part of Income Tax Act. No, it was introduced as a part of a finance bill. Okay, that is in the budget of 2016 it was introduced. Second, non-resident entities that offer advertisement services in India can claim a tax credit in their home country. No, this is also not true. So both the statements are false. So the right option will be what? Option D, neither one nor two. 49, consider the following statements. It's a question on FRBM. It was there in the newspapers because one, in the recently concluded budget, the Government of India, or to be more precise, the Finance Minister has stated that the Government of India will be abiding by the recommendations given by NK Singh Committee. And it was also in the newspapers because NK Singh Committee report was made public and heavily discussed or hugely discussed in the last 1 year. So basically, what are the important points related to that? Please go through another video that we have made, but essentially let's try and look at the options here or go through the points here. One, FRBM Review Committee report has recommended a debt to GDP ratio of 60% for the general का मतलब क्या होगा? Combined, that is central government plus state government, right? Combined government by 2023, comprising 40% for the central government and 20% for the state governments. It is true, right? It says the debt to GDP ratio, which is somewhere in the range of 67 to 69% now, has to be dragged down to 60%. Of this 60%, 40% will be the debt to GDP ratio of the central government and 20% will be collectively of the state governments. So, point 1 is true. Second, central government has domestic liabilities of 21% GDP of GDP as compared to that of 49% of GDP of the state government. Look at this. If the committee allows a level of 40% for the central government, obviously what is the meaning of this? Right now, the central government's debt to GDP ratio will be more than 40%. So if you look at it, 49% which has been given for the state governments is actually the debt to GDP ratio of the central government, and 21% is of the state governments collectively. So essentially, right, the numbers have been reversed. The 49% is for the central government, 21% is for the state governments. So this point is wrong. Third, as per the Constitution of India, it is mandatory for the state to take the central government's permission or the consent, right, because it owes a certain liabilities. So this particular statement is also true. If you have gone through the FRBM 2003, you will realize this is also true. So statement 1, statement 3 are correct. The right option will be what? Option C. Next is question number 50. Two statements have been given. I'll have to identify, right, whether these are true or not. First one is a quantity of imported edible oils is more than the domestic production of edible oils in the last 5 years. This is true. India is a large importer of edible oils. It is said that around 70% of the requirement in case of India, right, is imported, and the government of India has implemented a scheme to promote a production of the oilseeds in India. Essentially, under that we want to reduce the import level to around 55% by 2022. So essentially it means what? A majority of the requirement as of now is imported. So first statement is true. Second, the government of India does not impose any customs duty on all the imported edible oils as a special case. No. It was there in the newspapers because the government of India actually increased the customs duty on some of the imports of edible oils. So essentially the statement 2 is wrong. So the correct option will be option A. Question number 55. Which one of the following links all the ATMs in India? The right option is NPCI, National Payment Corporation of India. There is a concept called as NFS, National Financial Switch. This National Financial Switch basically is a network of majority of the ATMs which are present in India. That is a grid of connected ATMs which comprise majority of the ATMs in India is called as an NFS. And this NFS is regulated or maintained by whom? It is maintained by National Payments Corporation of India. So the right option is option C. Question number 61. Which of the following is/are the aim or aims of a digital India? If you have read regarding digital India, that is basically a question, this has been picked up from India Yearbook. So basically digital India has got 9 pillars. These are the 9 pillars, and even if you have seen the 9 pillars, just gone through the 9 pillars, you could have simply answered this particular question, because right, first statement says formation of India's own internet companies like China did. No, this is wrong. It is not part of 9 pillars of digital India. Second, establish a policy framework to encourage overseas multinational corporations that collect big data. No, this is also not a part of digital India. Third one, connect many of our villages to the internet, bring Wi-Fi to many of our schools, public places and major tourist centers. Correct. Very recently in the newspapers, there was a scheme or a program called as National Optical Fiber Network, which has been rechristened or renamed as BharatNet. What is the objective of BharatNet? BharatNet's objective is connecting 2.5 lakh village panchayats. So looking at the 9 pillars, right, as well as this particular based on information, third statement is true. That is option B. Next is question number 86. In this particular question, a term has been used, that is capital adequacy ratio. This capital adequacy ratio has been there in the newspapers because of 2 reasons. One is a prompt corrective action, under which RBI focuses on 4 parameters. One of the very important parameter is capital adequacy ratio, CAR, or it is also referred to as CRAR, credit to risk weighted assets ratio. Essentially because of PCA as well as Basel III guidelines. This particular term, capital adequacy ratio, was there in the newspapers. What is the meaning of a capital adequacy ratio? Capital adequacy ratio is, in simple terms, nothing but as a bank you are going to face a risk. What is a risk? Risk is that you have given loans to people or loans to companies. There is a danger that a part of the loans will not be given back to you, or you will not be able to receive these particular loans or collect the loans back. So you are going to face a risk in the market. To absorb these particular losses which you are going to incur because of a non-recovery of a loans, capital adequacy ratio says keep certain capital on the side which will absorb these particular losses. The formula for capital adequacy ratio is total capital divided by risk weighted assets. Right. So basically this was there in the newspapers because of Basel III guidelines, under which the Indian banks will have to meet a capital adequacy ratio of 11.5% by the end of the financial year 2019. So capital adequacy ratio is the amount that the banks have to maintain in the form of their own funds to offset any loss that banks incur in the account holders fail to repay the dues. This is correct. Capital adequacy ratio is decided by each individual bank? No, this is not decided by each individual banks. there is a committee which is called as a BCBS, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which issues Basel guidelines. But in case of India, RBI, right, has set up a higher limit under the concept of a capital adequacy ratio. So statement 2 is wrong, statement 1 is correct. So the right option will be option A. Next question is question number 91. Three statements regarding right issues or points related to Right to Education Act has been given. You will have to find out which of them is true. Let me start with the first point. As per the RTE Act, to be eligible for appointment as a teacher in a state, you are required to possess a minimum qualification laid down by STCE, that is a State Council of Teacher Education. This is wrong because if I visited the website MHRD, under there is one tab which basically discusses what are the minimum requirements that the teacher must have, and these requirements are specified by NCTE, National Council of Teacher Education, not State Council of Teacher Education. So statement 1 is wrong. Let me go to the second statement. As per RTE Act, for teaching primary classes, a candidate is required to pass a teacher eligibility test conducted in accordance with the National Council of Teacher Education guidelines. So this has been mentioned here. So basically this statement is true. Third one, in India more than 90% of teacher education institutions are directly under the state governments. This is wrong. So only second statement is true. The right option will be option B. Next is question number 95. With reference to the provisions made under NFSA 2013, consider the following statements. It's a straightforward question on the features of NFSA. First, the families coming under the category below poverty line only are eligible to receive subsidized food grains. The operative term here is only, because very recently the NFSA has had a pan-India coverage, that is more than 80 crore population has been covered under the concept of NFSA. So basically the poverty line in case of India, as per the Tendulkar Committee report for 2011, is around 22% of the population, which roughly comes at around 26 crore population for the year 2011. But under National Food Security Act, the coverage is worth how much? 80 crore population. So essentially, apart from focusing only on BPL population, we have also focused on other population also. So statement 1 is wrong. Eldest woman in a household of age 18 years or above shall be the head of the household for the purpose of issuance of a ration card. This is correct, and this has been done to promote women empowerment. Third, pregnant women and lactating mothers are entitled to take home ration of 1600 calories per day. It is wrong, right? It is true that there was one point under the NFSA, originally under NFSA, under which cash transfer worth 6,000 rupees was provided to pregnant and lactating women. But in the future, or after the implementation of NFSA, this also was withdrawn. A new scheme was launched by Government of India. So even the statement 3 is wrong. So only second statement. So option B is the right option. Next is question number 96. Straightforward question. India enacted GI of Goods Act 1999 in order to comply with the obligations of. It's a question on GI. So logical outcome will be what? It should be an issue related to World Trade Organization, and that is the right answer. India, being a member of WTO, right, has implemented various guidelines or various regulations, right, by the virtue of being a member of WTO. Next is question number 98. In this particular question, 2 points have been given related to BHIM app, and you will have to find out if they are true or false. First one, BHIM app allows the use of transfer of money to anyone with a UPI enabled bank account. So basically, if you have read anything regarding BHIM when this particular app was launched, if you have read anything in the newspapers that has come, you will realize that BHIM app will allow this kind of a transfers. So statement 1 is true. Second statement, in a chip pin debit card, it has got 4 factors of authentication, whereas BHIM has got 2 factors of authentication. Again, when the app was launched, the features of a BHIM were provided in various newspapers, and if you have read it very carefully, they will tell you that it will have a 3-factor authentication. That is, BHIM app will integrate with the mobile ID, BHIM app will get integrated with your mobile number, and there is also a concept of an MPIN to get or to transfer the money from one account to another account. So basically there are 3 factors of authentication. So statement 2 is wrong, statement 1 is correct. So the right option will be option A. So these are some of the questions that have appeared under the concept of economy or Indian economy, as well as some of the schemes that have appeared in the UPSC Prelims 2018, and this is the analysis of these particular questions. Thank you.